Rev up your engines!
Well, looks like Toyota's planning on getting sporty now that Trump is in. They're giving up with their full electric vehicles, at least until they get their solid-state batteries that they claim they're working on. But now they say they're gearing up for four-wheel drive MR2s, four-wheel drive Toyota Celicas, and a turbo V8 Lexus sports car. So they're getting more into the sports car realm again. They say that it's, quote, part of the push to bring a renewed sporting appeal to Toyota showrooms. Direct quote from Toyota. Hey, they're going back into sporty stuff again. Now, personally, I really don't understand this. Sports cars are becoming less and less appealable to the mass of Americans. The sales of these things is getting so low. For example, only 2,615 Supras sold in the United States in 2024. So they're hardly selling them. I don't comprehend why Toyota wants to bring sports car. I guess the Toyota family decides, oh, we want to be sporty again. It's not where they make their money, you know. I guess they're just into wanting to make sporty cars. They'll make a limited amount of them. They claim they're going to be making these themselves. It's not going to be like the Supra that's just a rebadged BMW or the other Toyota that's just a rebadged Subaru. They're going to actually make them themselves, they say. So, well, Toyota's starting to get sporty. Maybe it's one of those deals that, you know, in your old age, people get the old age crazies, the middle age crazies too, that, oh, they got to go back to their past and drive a sports car around. Maybe it's happening to the Toyota family. I don't know. Now, I often get this question, Scotty, I'd love a Toyota Tacoma, but I can't afford them. New and used, they cost so much money. So what should I get? Well, here's some alternatives that might be good for you. The Honda Ridgeline. Okay, now, unlike the Toyota Tacoma, that's a full frame with a body bolted on it, the Ridgeline is unibody, but it rides a lot better, right? I've got customers with them that have been totally happier, and especially used, you can get them cheaper than you can the Tacomas. Now, another one that I'm not the biggest fan of, but there's a reasonable amount of people buy them, are the GMC Canyons. That's another mid-sized truck that, you know, if you can't afford it, you can get used Canyons, sometimes less than half the price of a used Tacoma. And when it's that much money differential, especially if you look at one that's somewhat lower mileage, not super high mileage one, the Canyon could be okay. Now, on the other hand, I would buy a Tacoma with 150,000 miles on it as long as it was taken care of. I would not buy a Canyon that had 150,000 miles on it, but if you're buying new, you might go for the Canyon. And of course, there's the Ford Ranger. They sell a lot less than the Tacomas, but especially used, you can get a much better price on a used Ranger, and they can still last. The other one that could be good is the Nissan Frontier. Not anywhere near as well built as the Tacoma, but they're still decently built, and you get a choice of a 4-cylinder or a 6-cylinder, just like the old Tacomas, where you could get an old Tacoma with a 4 or an old Tacoma with a V6, depending, do you want power, or do you just want a dependable truck that you can zoom around in, not tow all that heavy weight, not that fast, but it can basically last forever. The Frontiers are not bad pickup trucks yet. So if you can't afford a Tacoma, you might look at these other choices and see if you can find a good used one, or if you like the better price of a new one and realize maybe it won't last 300,000-400,000 miles, but it might last as long as you care to drive it anyway. Well, Ford's at it again, recalling 240,000 vehicles, and get this, the seatbelt latches might not hold. Now, really, this is pretty simple technology, right? They can't even get that right anymore. They've made everything so cheap, they're trying to cut it to the bone to make more profit. The seatbelt buckles don't even stay buckled. Now, this is all Ford Explorers and Lincoln Aviators from 2020 and 2021. So as far as I'm concerned, those are pretty new cars, you know? I mean, I got Toyotas that are pushing 40 years old and the seatbelt buckles still snap and buckle, you know? Not 3-4 years later, the stupid things break. And here's the funny thing. They're not even going to send the warning out to the Ford drivers until March. I don't understand why they don't have to send the warnings out immediately. It's like, hey, your seatbelt buckle might not work, but we don't have to warn you for a month. What the heck? You know, you don't know anything. It's not going to hurt you, right? You don't know. Sure. The thing breaks, you get in a wreck, it could be all over. They get to wait to warn you. I don't know. Who makes these rules? You know? Government rules, of course, they make no sense if the government has anything anything to do with it, but they can't even make seatbelt buckles right now. That really makes you think, what's going on at Ford Motor Company? Now, there's so many recalls on so many cars, it's going to make your head spin, right? So what do you want to know about your own car? If you have one, maybe you moved and you didn't get the mailed notification, or maybe it's one of these things that they're not even going to tell you for a month. It's very easy to find out if your car's a recall. As long as you got a phone or a computer, nhtsa.gov. And you just put in your car and a VIN number. That's all you need to do. And all that information will pop up absolutely free. And as an added bonus, let's say you've got a problem with your car and you see other people seem to have that problem. At that same site, input your information, say, I'm having this problem. If they get so many thousands of people that complain about the same problem, then they launch an investigation. And if they find out it's real, they can issue a recall. So you can get involved in the process. If you bought a car that's got problems because it was poorly made, you can report it, and it can get the ball rolling that if enough people report the same problem, they'll investigate. They see that it's real. They'll make a recall. So, NHTSA. It's a cool website to look at anyways. A lot of information on there. But if you're always curious about your car, gee, does it have any problems that you're going to get fixed for free? You go there. Costs nothing. In you go, and there's all kinds of stuff you can figure out. For once, the government's doing something that works. Well, I tell you about how these GM products have problems. Well, here's one for you. Guy sends you an email and it says, my 2024 Chevy Silverado has 11,000 miles on it. It won't shift into forward or reverse. Now I need a new transmission, but the dealer won't have the parts in for 3 months minimum. This shows that they're making them all wrong, or most of them wrong, because you can't get the parts because they're all breaking and they don't have the parts for that large amount of thousands and thousands or even hundreds of thousands of vehicles that they built incorrectly. Now, if I were to spend that kind of money for a brand new truck and at 11,000 miles, the transmission wouldn't move forwards or backwards, and they say, yeah, it's the transmission, but we're not going to have parts for at least 3 months, maybe longer. Don't buy these things. Listen to me. I'm here to help everyone out. As times change, maybe they'll get better. As far as I can see, GM's been going downhill for a long time. Now, Toyota even is starting to go downhill. Is Toyota going to learn and start going back up again, or at least level off? Now, I don't know, because they're making a lot of mistakes, too. Going from V6s to Turbo 4s. Hey, look at GM. Can you imagine? You would buy a truck for all that money. At 11,000 miles, the transmission broke, and they said, well, we might be able to get parts and fix it 3 months from now. I know one thing. If you don't buy these things, you don't have that problem. Right? Let's say if Rolex watches all broke when they got to be a year old. Well, I'm not going to buy a Rolex anyways because it's too much money. Who the heck needs a watch now anyways? We all got phones with clocks on them, right? What do you need a watch for anymore? It's more of a fashion accessory now. Well, unless you want your vehicle to be just a fashion accessory you can look at and not drive, I advise you to stay away from GM. Well, I told people how I don't like the new Lexuses that went from a nice smooth V6 to a Turbo 4. Well, guess what? I'm not the only one out there. Harold sends me an email and he says, Scotty, I bought a 2023 RX Lexus. I got the Turbo 4, not the hybrid. I really wanted a 6-cylinder, but it wasn't available. That 4-cylinder turbo in the RX whined like a scalded cat, and I couldn't stand the noise anymore. So I traded it for a 25 BMW. My BMW gets better gas mileage on the highway and is so smooth. The Lexus dealer said we went to the Turbo 4 because of emissions. Well, I don't understand it. I can still get a 6-cylinder BMW, Acura, or Cadillac. How come they don't have problems with the emissions with their V6? Love your videos. I should have listened to you. Okay, here's a guy who bought the wrong car and even admitted it, right? Big mistake, Lexus. You go from a smooth V6 to a noisy, whiny, 4-cylinder. And then they say, oh, the Ford Turbo gets better gas mileage. No, it doesn't. As he showed, in the real world, he got worse gas mileage in the Lexus Turbo 4 than he gets in his BMW 6 that isn't a turbo. So all the stuff about emissions and get better gas mileage is total nonsense in the real world. Yeah, on these dumb tests that they do on dynamometers, maybe they get better gas mileage, but in the real world, they do not. And unless you drive your car on a dyno and don't go anywhere, you're going to find you get much better gas mileage with a bigger, stronger engine cruising along in a luxury vehicle than you do with a little whiny 4-cylinder turbo. And of course, as I've said over and over again, the 4-cylinder turbo is going to wear out so much faster than a normally aspirated V6, it would make your head spin. Well, if you think you drive an old vehicle, guess what? Scientists found evidence of vehicles from tens of thousands of years ago in the United States. Turns out in the sands of New Mexico, they see these tracks, and they think it's the first vehicles that anybody has ever seen. Now, granted, they didn't have wheels. They were dragging the vehicles across. They found the drag marks and people's footprints pulling them. It's a type of sledge known as a travois. Travois are like a wheelbarrow without any wheels. You're just dragging it across. Now, the first wheeled vehicles, as far as they can figure so far, were made in Mesopotamia. And this will beat them by like 17,000 years, which is kind of bizarre when you think about it, because if it was in New Mexico that they have the first proof of things being vehicles that people have, even though they're pulling them by themselves and they're not self-powered, is that they never invented the wheel there. They stopped by just dragging things, right? You would think, especially in Mesoamerica, the Mayans, the Incans, right? They had a round calendar. Their calendar was round. Yet, they never invented the wheel to put on things to wheel it around. You would think somebody would have said, you know, that calendar, if we stuck a hole in the middle and a stick between them, we'd have a nice little wheeled vehicle, right? They never thought of that. Now you figure that out. But they may have invented the first vehicle, at least the first proven vehicle, that they have the drag marks and the footprints, that they had a vehicle they were pulling and they were dragging. They just couldn't figure out, you know, maybe something better than sticks in the ground. Maybe we should take our calendars and stick them on those with an axle in between, and then we'll have wheeled vehicles. It would work a lot better. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.